Laura. Laura. This is your father.
Hello and welcome to episode 39 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello. So, if anyone hears, I'm very low energy today. I'm not feeling well at all. But that's a good thing because to make up for my low energy, we have two very high energy people with us.
Yeah, our two other guests, Kyle and Jay.
Introduce yourself, Kyle.
I'm Kyle. Okay. I'm Kyle.
I'm already dreading editing this. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys know who I am. I'm Kyle.
All right, it's me, Jay, Julian, everyone's favorite. People have been asking for me to come back, and now you got it. Oh wait, I gotta make sure I'm recording. All right, I'm recording. Yeah. Thanks for having me back, guys.
It's funny we have two people on as guests today because these two were fighting nonstop about which episodes they were going to be on, so we decided to put them on the same one.
I like spooky games.
Yeah, I like spooky games too.
This is coming out the first week of October, so this whole month we're going to be covering horror games, or horror-themed games anyway. So this is the first one. Yeah, on the topic of this game, have either of you ever played an adventure FMV game like this before?
I have. I can't remember what the name is. I just remember being a pirate and traveling around, and there were ninjas and stuff. I played it on PC. I wish I could tell you what the name was, but I played that game a lot as a kid.
Well, me and you both played a bunch of FMV games for our other YouTube show. So
yeah, that too.
We played so many and they were all mostly bad. So, that kind of tells you where we're going here. But what about you guys, Kyle?
I've never played like a FMV game. Like, I know this game is kind of like a movie game, quote unquote. I've played like Until Dawn, but I don't think that really counts.
I think that's close.
Yeah, this leans more into an adventure game, like point and click adventure games where the puzzles make no sense and you just have to use items in places,
Oh, yeah.
What does FMV stand for?
Full motion video.
Okay, yeah, I've never. So is this actually taking, I don't know if you know this, but taking place in like a 3D space, or are these just like pre-recorded clips that they kind of strung together? Like, is the game actually happening, or is this just a movie that's playing back?
I'm almost certain it is like just clips.
Wow, that is so strange. You're literally just playing like this could be played on like a fucking DVD player.
Dude, that's what I was just thinking.
You don't need like the PS1 tech for this.
Well, there's a ton of games like this from the like early to mid 90s. Like when they realized they could do this, they're like, oh, that would be so sick. It would be so cinematic. And it turns out it's not at all.
Yeah.
No. So what's everyone's history with like horror games in general?
I mean, I play a lot of horror games. I think my favorite game is probably Resident Evil 4. I have a lot of favorite games. I've said them on a previous episode, but like from different genres. But if we're talking horror, like I play a shit ton of horror games. Resident Evil 4, pretty much that entire series. I don't know, Left 4 Dead, all that stuff, the high energy stuff, Outlast. But when it comes to like the older games, especially like the problem solving ones, I didn't get a chance to play a lot of those because they got phased out for the most part in favor of like the action and zombie shooter horror games. By the time I was getting into gaming, which was like, I don't know, GameCube and a little after that, like I had the Wii for a long time. And so like there was nothing like that coming out. So yeah, this is my first time playing like an FMV horror game. I'm pretty much just used to like the action ones.
Kyle, we know you love horror games.
Yeah, big fan here. I think survival horror is probably my favorite genre. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Fatal Frame is a great game as well. Love Fatal Frame. Dino Crisis, as we recently discovered or rediscovered. Good game. All good games. Love me a good spooky time.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you, I actually went back and upped my score for Dino Crisis even higher because I felt like it was so good.
See, there you go. That's how I felt. Like I do want to go back and play that game again now that like it's fresh in my memory, and so maybe I'll like discover some new things I didn't before or something like that. I
mean, me and Mike have kind of already talked about this, but just to say it real quick, I like the idea of horror games, but I'm too scared to play most of them.
Same.
But I would say this was not a problem here. That's for sure.
No. And I think all the horror games I've ever played in my life have been played for this show and the earlier show Jimmy and I did. So outside of the shows that we do, when Jimmy forces me to play a horror game, I never play them.
It's going to be a rough month.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. That's what I look forward to.
All right, let's just hop into the game then, because we're all ready to get into this.
Let's go.
D was released for the PlayStation on March 5th, 1996. It came out a year earlier, actually, on the 3DO. It was a big deal for that, apparently. It was developed by Warped and published by Acclaim. And like we said, it's a horror-themed FMV game mixed with like an adventure game. And yeah, let's just go ahead and say this game sucks.
Dude, this game fucking blows.
It's rough.
I want to bat for this game a little bit because I feel like there's a certain goofiness that's really novel and you're able to appreciate the game for it. And there's other parts about it that are actually well executed too.
I will say the absurdity of it is the part that I liked, but the act of playing the game makes me want to rip my hair out.
And I want to say right off the bat, I'm sorry for anyone watching this video on YouTube. Like, as excruciating as it is to watch this game being played, it's like a million times worse actually playing it.
I just want to say right off the bat that when I first started playing this game, I almost had to stop because I was getting like motion sickness just from like the turning in the game and the movement. Like once I played it for a bit, I kind of settled in, but I almost like texted Jimmy and was like, hey man, I'm not going to be able to do this episode. I had to stop for a second and like kind of reel it in because it was just like, it was too much.
Honestly, it's kind of like VR where you're like, you got to get your like sea legs. You know what I mean? Where
exactly like the first few times I was turning, I was just like, whoa, like it's like so slow. And like the things are like, you know, the graphics are like obviously shitty as hell. So it's like, it's all like pixelated and blurry. And I just felt like the room was spinning at one point.
See, I've never played an FMV game, and I expected something more like Resident Evil, because I didn't know what this was going to play like going into it at all. So I picked up the controller and immediately like hit forward or left or whatever, and it started playing like, I don't know, a really poor movie, but it just reminded me of like a Flash game. I don't know, like anything I'd play on like Newgrounds back then, which I have a soft spot for games like those. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I actually thought it was kind of cool. Definitely gets old quick. Really quick, and it's slow as fuck. So,
but here's the thing, man, like this came out on PlayStation and people were like stoked on it. Like this wasn't just a Flash game made by one person in their bedroom. Like this was developed by a studio. This was made by a team of people. This is on 3 discs.
that's true.
So I was kind of excited about the 3-disc thing because Metal Gear Solid is a 2-disc game, and they had to do that because there's so much content. They had to split it up between 2 discs. So I'm like, oh, we're getting a 3-disc game? Like, this game is going to be amazing. We're going to get a ton of content. And oh, how disappointed I was in that.
Final Fantasy VII is on 3 discs. I was like, whoa. I was like, this is a big game. Because, I mean, okay, so I remember watching my cousin play this game when I was real young. So I just remember it was like a spooky game and he had a hard time with it. So I didn't really know much about it other than, you know, the few things I remembered. But like, dude, what the fuck?
All right. So we'll go through this whole game because it's not that long. Did all of you guys, how far did you guys get? Because I know me and Mike beat it, right?
really?
Listen,
I didn't beat it, by the way.
Fuck.
Oh, I thought you did. How far did you get?
We'll save this. I didn't beat it, but I made it to that top hallway, like in the attic area.
Okay, so you were like basically at the end. Yeah.
I did the last puzzle and then I finished it. And then all of a sudden, this fucking cutscene triggers with some weird like blue triangle or something. And she gets sucked into it. And I'm like, what happened? And then a message on the screen popped up and said, time's up. Please try again.
Okay, I guess we're talking about this now. That's the exact same thing that happened to me.
Dude, I was right. That you walk up the stairs and then the end of the game pretty much triggers. And as Jimmy knows, you have 2 options. And it's pretty much a no-brainer. It's super simple. There's nothing going on after that. Like that puzzle is like the climax of the game, pretty much. And I'm like, all
All
right,
right.
I got to settle down.
Wait, what puzzle?
All right. Well, Jay, how far did you get?
Yeah, I only got, so I'm going to guess like middle of disc 2. And this is for various reasons. For one, I didn't realize the game was on a timer the first time I did it. So I played through chapter 1 and then I let it ride while I took a shower and made some food.
Oh, no.
And then I came back and the time was up. And I was like, all right, okay, I still have 4 hours before this, so I can still hit it. And then I did it again, blazed through chapter 1, insert disc 2, closed out the emulator, booted up disc 2. Disc 2 said, you gotta start disc 1. And I realized that I didn't use the change disc feature, and so my save didn't carry over, because we don't do save states. I don't play around. I don't fucking do save states.
Well, you can't save in this game at all. It's meant to be played in one.
You can't save, yeah. One sitting, exactly. Which is kind of bullshit, but whatever. I feel like you should be allowed to like save your progress maybe at the end of each disc, but who cares?
I agree with you.
Yeah. Went to change the disc finally the third time, and I had like, I don't know, 3 hours left at that point. So anyways, yeah. I got to the, what do you call it? Astrology puzzle with the colors and the microscope.
Okay, yeah.
So you made it to the rotating room?
Yeah, I made it past that. I got the sword, unlocked from, oh my god, I was stuck on the QTE part for like 20 minutes. It got to a point where the QTE part was so boring and I was so frustrated with it and it took so long. So what happens is every time you get knocked down by this knight back into the pit and have to restart, it takes at least like 40 seconds. I don't know, that's maybe a stretch, but it takes a fucking while to climb up this ladder and then for the whole thing to restart again. So I was like going to the fridge and getting something to drink and like holding forward to climb up the ladder while like doing other shit, coming back, missing another QTE, and I was just getting so frustrated. It became an abusive cycle. But anyways, yeah, I got stuck there or wasted a lot of time there too. So I only got to the astrology part.
With that quick time event, I didn't like realize that you can only hit the button once. And I was just like tapping left, and then it was, triggering him knocking me into the pit. And I was like, what the fuck? I hit left. And then come to realize you hit it one time. And so then once I got that down, that was like by the third or fourth time, I was like, all right, cool. But that rotating room, fuck the rotating room.
All right, before we jump into that, let's start at the beginning of the game, go through the whole game. We'll have plenty of things to complain about, I'm sure.
Okay.
We always do this thing every episode, whether it's just me and Mike, whether it's one of you guys, we just fucking go right into one thing that we're so mad about, but we haven't talked about the game at all.
So starting, I think the story is interesting in the beginning. I mean, it's very generic, but it sets up something that seems like it would be fun.
I genuinely liked the story until the end when I found out what it all meant. Then I was like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah.
I think the story is really stupid, and I appreciate it for being stupid. It's definitely not scary. I don't know how it even could have been scary back then. It boggles me how this could have scared people back when. It is so fucking goofy. But I appreciated the story for, like, again, the novelty of it.
So I'll say, like, obviously this is not scary, but I do think the general vibe when you're exploring with that, like, drone in the background is at the very least unsettling.
Yeah. There's times that like, so when you first start and you walk into that one room and then to your left is a mirror, I will say whenever I turned and looked at the mirror, I did get a tiny little bit frightened because there was someone standing there and I wasn't expecting that. But because of what this game is and because of how you move, I'm like, well, there's never ever going to be like a chase scene or something because there can't be.
Well, once you realize there's no enemies besides the knight, it kind of stops being scary, and there's not like instant deaths or anything either, so there's not really that threat of like, oh, this is gonna, like, I did get jump scared one time.
What was the part?
When you look at that chest in the room, I like was half paying attention to it and I was looking at it and then the spikes came up and it did make me jump because I had the game turned up kind of loud.
And that was a loud part too.
Most of the time I got jump scared, it was because the sound effects are so goddamn loud in this game.
I had to keep my volume kind of low because they would just, oh, we're going to do a jump scare. So here's this very loud part that almost blows out your eardrums.
Speaking of the audio, I feel like this game had some of the most questionable audio choices ever. Whenever there was like a noise for evading like a trap or like getting a new item, it would be like some like oddly positive like Zelda knockoff sounding little jingle would happen, and I don't know, it totally conflicted with the game, and it took me out of it. Not that I was really that immersed anyways, but yeah, it was very odd.
I hate the sound when you're like scrolling through stuff. Like it just sounds like a brick sliding across the ground or something. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with that.
That's a good description of it. Yeah.
I was like, because you can barely hear it as it is. So I'm like, what is this noise? And I'm like tapping left. I'm like, that's that.
So I guess like the story of this is you play as the daughter and your dad is going on a killing rampage in the hospital. So you need to go figure out why. And that's the story. You never actually play in a hospital, by the way. You are in the hospital for about 5 seconds in the beginning, and then you're transported into this other like castle thing.
In a cutscene exclusively, and you're not even playing in the hospital.
Well, that's everything in this whole game, so you're not actually playing anywhere. You're just watching a video.
Yeah, good point.
I think the story would have been a lot better if there was actual voice acting from her.
Yeah, she doesn't say a word the whole game.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't even realize that.
The only person that talks is your dad.
Laura.
Laura.
I'm your dad.
No, you forgot 5 more Lauras before you actually start talking.
And then this like weird transparent face just like appears in front of you. It's like, go home.
Which she doesn't really have a choice. She'll be like blocked in by a boulder, and he's like, "You gotta turn around, and leave." It's like, did you not see what happened?
My favorite thing about that is every single time that cutscene happened, she looks around the room, and it's always up. You just have to look up at the ceiling, and your dad is always there every single time. Just learn once to just look straight up, and then you can cut out 5 Lauras, and then we can get on with the story.
For a game that's supposedly supposed to focus on the story because it is like a cinematic movie game, it does a pretty poor job at executing its story in like every way.
Yeah, I was really confused until like the end when he kind of explains what's going on. I was just like, okay, I understand that my dad's crazy and is killing people, and I'm like going to this hospital to see what's up. But then I'm suddenly in this like fucking castle, and then you just kind of ride from there. Like you get those weird like flashback sequences that are like look really bad, and you're just, it's kind of like, what's going on? And then he explains at the end what those are, and then I was just like, oh, okay, I guess.
Oh, he explains what the bugs are?
Mike and Jay, do you know what the ending of this game is?
I think I do, but I want to see what Jay does.
Nah, I don't know it.
All right. So since we're talking about the story, might as well get this out of the way before we get into the specifics. So you have the blood of Dracula. That's what B stands for.
Oh my god!
Who saw that twist coming?
Your dad is becoming Dracula.
Genius.
So whenever I got to that cutscene, and whenever they said about the blood of Dracula, I literally laughed out loud because of how ridiculous that sentence was. And out of nowhere, like they never built up to that part. They're just out of nowhere, like, oh, by the way, you have the blood of Dracula.
So the bugs are representative of your mom's necklace. So when you see them, you have a flashback to when you, as the main character, killed your mom and ate her.
Oh, that's what that was.
Dude, and that one cutscene where Laura's like chewing on the arm, I screamed. I did my laugh, dude. I was like, are you kidding me right now? She's just like,
I gotta see that.
dude, it's so bad. And then like the other one, like when she's like stabbing her mom and like the knife, it just looks so bad, dude. And then there's like this like fucking like puddle of blood on the ground that has like all these jagged edges and stuff. It's like, I was like, what am I looking at here?
And that also drags on for what, 5 minutes of the scene of constantly watching her getting stabbed in slow motion.
It's so long. Like this whole game, it's crazy how like drawn out, like the movement in itself, but like just everything in this game is so drawn out that like if it wasn't, you could beat this game in 20 minutes. For sure. Like if someone made a mod that like skipped all the fucking like movie walking around scenes and shit. Like you could fly through this game. There's no reason it would take 2 hours to beat.
Now, I want to say two things. One, I think that's to bat for this game. That's kind of I mean, the Dracula part's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But killed her mom and ate her. Is that what you guys said?
Yeah.
That's pretty gnarly. I fuck with that. And then also, second, agreed, game is way too slow, but do you feel like if it were just a little bit faster, it would be all right because it's sort of like an artistic decision? I mean, it's too slow, but like it still should be a slow paced game. I wouldn't want all the bullshit to be cut out because like it's kind of how you get immersed. Not that it was that immersive either, but maybe for the time, the pacing helped. You know what I mean?
I agree with you. I think that if you made it too fast, it wouldn't have the effect that it does anymore. But I just think there should be a middle ground, just a little tiny bit faster, and it would have been fine. It wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, too, is like you watch her do every tiny step through this entire game. That part, I think, Kyle, you were talking about where you fall into the pit. Or no, Jay, you were talking about you fall into the pit and have to climb up.
Yeah.
It's not like a cutscene where you automatically make it to the top. You have to watch her climb up every rung of the ladder until you get to the top.
Yeah, it takes for fucking ever, and it's the worst. Which is it's exactly why I started getting up and doing other things around the house. I just couldn't take it. I'd hold forward and just get up and go do other shit.
That was my time to write notes. It's like, oh, I got to walk across this room. I'm going to start typing up notes because I know it's going to be about 2 minutes before I reach where I need to get to.
I was like, yeah, I could throw this thing in the microwave in 30 seconds. I'll be quick as fuck. Like racing around the house.
But yeah, I mean, that's the whole story, though. That's it. You know, Dracula.
That's what D stands for.
What's funny is there is a D2. It's on Dreamcast. I looked it up, and it completely ignores this entire game, and it's just a completely different game. It stars the same character, Laura, but that's the only thing that's similar. It literally has no connections, period.
Is it an FMV game or?
No, it's like a full 3D, like third-person action game.
That sounds like they went in a better direction than this one.
They're just like, yeah, I don't know about that one, Chief.
I mean, like, honestly, I can see what the guy was going for with this, because this is like mainly created by one guy. Like, he's like the Hideo Kojima of this.
Yeah.
So, like, I understand what you're trying here, and probably in 1995 when this came out, it was probably like crazy, but like there is just no reason to go back to this game at all.
No. So I couldn't find the manual at first. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing any buttons on the controller and couldn't find it for the PlayStation, but I found one for the 3DO. And even in the beginning, he gives a statement like, oh, well, this is kind of like you're watching a movie and we want to give you the movie experience. So that's why we're not putting in save states and we're not giving you pretty much anything. Like you have to watch everything because his intention was you're watching a movie this whole time.
Yeah, but like 80% of the movie is just you fucking walking
and spinning in circles.
Dude, like even like I don't know how anybody would have the intuition to do some of the things they have you do in this game. Like one of the first things you have to do is you go to like the fucking like dresser looking thing that has like the numbered drawers. And you know, you open the top drawer and it triggers that scene because you find like the beetle. So it's like, all right, it triggers a flashback. But then you're like back standing at the drawer. You already opened that drawer. Why would you open it again to find something different in there? So it's like I went through all the other drawers and I was like, okay, cool. Nothing in here, I guess. And so I'm walking around forever. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So then I pull out that fucking mirror that tells you what to do. And it shows me the dresser. I'm like, I was just there. And then I open the first drawer and there's that fucking letter in there. And I'm like, what? And so then I have this letter and I'm like, okay, do I read it? And you can't read it. You can't do anything with it. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I'm like walking around, going back to places I'd been before. And then I'm like, okay, I've spent like 20 minutes walking around. I have no idea what to do. So I had to pull up a fucking guide. I had to use a guide. And then it's like, oh yeah, put the letter in a bowl of water on this table or bowl of blood or whatever. And I'm just like, what bowl? And so I walk back out into that room and lo and behold, there's a fucking bowl on it, but you have to like And here's one of my gripes about this game too, is it's like there's like anchor points that you have to like point to and move to. So it's like you can't just walk to this. You have to like, okay, you have to walk in the direction of the table. Now you have to walk halfway between the table and that other door, and then you turn left and then move forward towards the bowl, which like I had never done before because I didn't think to turn and, you know, I don't know. I was just like, oh, here's a table. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary on it. There's, you know, just you know, bowls and plates and candles and stuff. So I'm like, who would think to walk up to this bowl and put a fucking letter in it?
I mean, the reason I figured that out and knew about that was simply because of the cutscene in the beginning. Whenever you're watching it and they're kind of giving you everything, they show you snippets of the game. And one of the snippets was a piece of paper going into a bowl of water. So when I got the paper, I'm like, oh, wait, they already showed me this in the beginning. So I just went and like most of the puzzles I figured out were because they show you it in the beginning cutscene. Like hints.
Isn't it weird they like spoiled a bunch of the game in advance of you? Like, why would they do that?
Exactly.
Because you need it. Like, if I had realized that, you know, because they're showing the opening cutscene and I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. It's a movie. Not realizing that those were going to be helpful clues, you know, to the puzzles in the game. And like, speaking on puzzles in the game, the one that's like the little slot thing where you have to like make the numbers go to 78.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about how fucking abysmal that was? That's not a puzzle. Okay, you find that door and it says 78 on it. You're like, okay, cool. I have to make this go to 78. But then it's like getting that first number lined up is pretty easy because it's like, okay, you just stop it like one or two numbers before and then it rolls to it. Or you can just go one by one. But then it's like you do the second number where you have to get the 8, and it's like it just seems random as to what number you need to go to.
All right, so I can explain that.
Okay.
But first, I just want to say I had the exact same experience as you, Kyle, on the first puzzle. I couldn't even find that note. So what I did was I followed a walkthrough after that for the rest of the game. Right there, I was like, this is not going to go well for me because I can't figure out the first fucking puzzle.
So it makes me wonder that if you didn't follow the walkthrough, you would have been right with us of getting a timeout.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But like any game like this, that's like puzzle forward, especially older ones, like the old adventure games, I need a walkthrough because I will just never figure it out. So I have no shame.
Yeah, I mean, these old ones, and puzzle games are like my favorite, but these old ones are the most frustrating because they do not hold your hand at all. And they don't explain a single fucking thing.
Exactly. But Kyle, I actually looked this up after. So the way that like safe puzzle works is you pick the first number and then the second number, whatever you land on, it moves by the amount of the first number. So it's not random. You would pick like 7 and then you'd pick 1. So it would go to 8.
Oh.
But I had the same experience as you and I just kind of like fucked with it until I got it because like I didn't figure that out. I found that out after when I was like doing some research.
Yeah, it took me forever to figure it out. And the walkthrough I used was pretty shitty too. And I feel like that kind of like led me astray. Because at first it said, okay, you want the first number to land between 2 and 3, or 1 and 2, around there. And then you want the second number to land on 2 or 3. And so I tried that and I was like, well, that didn't work. So then I was just like, fuck it. I just kept doing random things. And I kept getting 7, but I'm like, all right, I'm just going to land on every single fucking number until I make it happen. And then 1 was like the last one I picked. And then it went to 8. And I was like, geez, finally.
Trust me, I'm right there with you. I brought up my footage so I can just show you me suffering with this. But I did the exact same thing. Just brute forcing my way through it.
That's where my problems were too. And whenever you put the paper in the water, it gives you 42. So I'm like, oh, 42 is the number you need on this thing.
Oh, God.
I probably spent about 15 minutes on this trying to get 42. Finally did, and nothing happened. I'm like, motherfucker.
Oh, my God, dude.
I tried 42 first as well, but then I found that stupid door and I was like, all right, this game is really on the nose. That's the
Yeah.
one thing about this game is the puzzles are so obvious. I mean, I did get stuck on the astrology one, but most of these puzzles are really dumb, or you have to go somewhere or find something that's just not in plain view and it's kind of unreasonable.
So the astrology puzzle, so I actually only used the walkthrough for that puzzle because I knew the colors and I got into the thing and I hit the color that it needed to be and I was still stuck in the menu. And I'm like, where am I supposed to go now? The walkthrough doesn't tell me anything, and I'm stuck here. And I thought I was soft locked in the game, so I was gonna just quit there. I had to text Jimmy and say like a screenshot of it and to ask like, how do I get out of this because I'm stuck.
Yeah, I got stuck in that menu too, and I was already using a walkthrough at that point because I was so over the game. I was just like, I'm just gonna fucking work my way through this with a walkthrough. And so I'm in this menu. I pressed, the fucking green, and I'm like hitting X, circle, whatever. I'm like, what's going on here? And then you have to back the hand all the way out of the menu. I was like, what? Why?
Yeah, the UI for this game is really janky.
Can we talk about the rotating room yet?
Honestly, I was going to say the puzzles after that, the next few anyway, were pretty straightforward. I didn't have any trouble. Like, yeah, I had the walkthrough up, but like I didn't feel like I needed it until I got to the rotating room.
Dude, the rotating room is the fucking bane of my existence. First of all, as we've talked about before, all of the movement and whatnot is already super slow as it is. But the rotating room is random. Am I correct in that? That is random what door pops up?
I think it goes in order, but it's just a super long order.
They stay in the same order.
So the walkthrough says it's random, Kyle. That's why I thought that too. And then I watched a video of someone else playing it, and he was like, oh, spin it 10 times and it goes to this. So it's literally just, you have to just keep doing it over and over again, and it cycles through the rooms. But the order is so long, it'll literally be like spin it 13 times or something. But I didn't know that, so I just kept spinning it, turning around, checking, turning back, spin it again.
That's what I did too.
That's exactly how I did it too. And it was grueling. I remember I was like watching the time, and I had been spinning it, turning around, checking, and going back for it was like 10 minutes. I was like, dude,
oh my God,
this is insane.
Especially when you grab something from one area and you have to come back to go to a new area, and you're like, now I got to sit through all this spinning again and keep checking to see where the doors pop up.
That's the thing, is like once you get to that part in the game, there's multiple rooms that you have to go to through the rotating room. So you spend a large portion of the game fucking rotating this room. like that's literally half of the game is like fucking with the rotating room. Oh God, I hate just looking at that video of her turning that fucking handle of going back. Dude, nightmares.
I think it's also bullshit that there's so many instances when you're rotating this that there's just no door. There's nowhere new to go. It's just a brick wall. So you turn around, look, brick wall. Okay, there's nothing to go through. Wasting my time. Turn back. And that's like at least 10 seconds every time. And it's frustrating as fuck because it adds up so quick. I spent 30 minutes on the rotating room minimum.
Yep. And I think you're being generous about the 10-second thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I wasted all of my time.
20? Yeah.
I would go as far as saying literally like probably a third of this game is spent in this room.
You might actually be right about that.
Like, honestly.
That's very fair. Because like, yeah, you spend so fucking long in this room. Like, it's almost like this is like a focal point where it's like, okay, you're at this part now. This is the rest of the game. Because you got to think, dude, like you come back to the rotating room after you do all these puzzles and you get the gun, and then you go into the stained glass room, fucking window, and you shoot that shit out. And then you're pretty much, you hit the hallway and then the final puzzle and then the game ends.
That's the thing too, is whenever I got the gun, I was like, oh, weird. I think I went to everything. I don't need the gun for anything else. Then I remember the stained glass room and like, God damn it, I got to go back to the rotating room and find that stained glass thing again.
I thought a lot about the same things you were thinking about, Jay, where it's like, this is like, intentionally artistic choices. And if it wasn't for this room specifically, I think that I could kind of see where you're at and just like forgive a lot of shit. But this room specifically, like almost to me, ruins the game completely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in concept, this room, at first I was like, holy shit, every time I turn it, get a different room, I was like, this is pretty sick. But the fact that there's 13 rotations or however many, I don't know who said it, but there's 10 to 13 rotations to get to the next room that you need to be in. And like half of them are fucking brick walls. That's bullshit. So there's artistic choices, and then there's just bad choices. And I don't know. The rotating room, unfortunately, could have been a really well executed, cool idea, in my opinion. Maybe it still would have sucked because this game's pacing wouldn't have changed no matter what. So, but if they sized it down to like 3 dope rooms that were like quick to navigate, because you also waste a lot of time navigating between like the top of the tower and the astrology puzzle outside the rotating room, and then going back into the rotating room, then going back out. I don't know. Just the pacing could have been a lot better.
Yeah, I think the majority of this game is the rotating room and just walking in general. The movement is the biggest part of this game. It's more or less a walking simulator with a little bit of puzzles every so often.
A walking simulator in the truest sense of the word.
It's true, yeah.
But also, I wish you could just like hold forward, have her keep going, because she has to stop like every 10 feet, even if there's nothing to really turn into.
And dude, it's also really bad when you like you know where you're going, but you accidentally hit like the wrong button. So then you like move to the wrong spot. It's like, fuck, now I got to turn around and go to this spot. Like when I was in I guess they call it the library, where you have those like 4 busts or whatever. And that's like an anchor point to get to the books.
Yeah.
I was like trying to walk towards them, but then I couldn't remember. Like you have to like walk to a certain spot in the room, but I turned and then went to walk another way. And I was like, wait, now I'm too far. So it took me a minute to like find exactly what part of the room I had to go to get to the busts, to get to the bookcase. Like, what?
The big rooms are definitely a problem with that of like, I need to get into this area, but you can't access that area from every single point, like you're saying. So finding that anchor point that allows you to get to the other part of the room was always so frustrating.
Honestly, to that point, I feel like there's some times where I didn't look in one direction, so I didn't even know there was something right there.
Yep.
Like that room early on where you go in and there's the room with the safe, but like the main room when you first walk in and there's just a guy hanging there.
Yeah.
The first time I went in there, I didn't turn to the left. I just turned to the right. So I didn't even know there was that little bedroom there at all. So once I got to that point, I was like, the first floor bedroom, it said in the guide. I was like, where the fuck is that? I've never been there. So I had to look at a YouTube video to see that I just didn't push left to know there was a whole other room here, because you can't even see it when you walk through the door. It's just crazy.
And in a way, it's kind of helpful too, because like when you're up in the attic area for one of those like the gear puzzle that you had to do, I noticed that it stops you halfway in the hallway. I'm like, okay, there has to be a reason why it's stopping me here. Like it's just not going to stop me for no reason. So that's how I was able to find the hidden room. So I think it's kind of helpful in that sense of, like you were saying, Kyle, when it stops you next to the table, that allows you to look left and then see the bowl of water. So it was kind of just ingrained in my brain that anytime the character stops, quickly spin around the room to see what is happening and what I might be missing.
I also didn't think the gear puzzle was that hard either. Like it was fine.
Well, for that, it was the same thing like what Kyle was saying, where I'm doing the gear puzzle and then I get cut into this cutscene. I'm like, oh, I was just like trying to figure out what the numbers were. I guess I solved it. And then when it gave me that splash screen of, oh, time over, try again. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
I'm honestly surprised that I didn't get that, because in the very beginning, before I used the guide, I was walking around for like 20 minutes. Like I was just combing through the entire first area trying to figure it out. So when I found out there was a time limit from the guide, I was starting to get really scared at the end. I'm like, I'm so close. I cannot not beat this now.
How much time is on the timer? Do you guys know?
2 hours.
Oh, okay.
It's 2 hours of like real time.
Yes. So earlier when we were chatting, you're like, oh, I still have 2 hours before the show to play through. That's why I said literally 2 hours, because that's all you have for the game to actually play it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I blew it. I blew it. So
There's that one part with when you're walking down the staircase and that giant boulder comes up behind you. I'm like, oh, now you know how to run. Can we just have a giant boulder chasing us through the whole game so our character actually moves fast?
Exactly. Like snail's pace, bro. She's walked so slow through the whole game. I feel like they're like, oh, that's what's going to make this scary, is if like you're just moving so slow, but it just ends up being like a fucking drag. You're like, oh my God, come on. Especially when you got like, when you're in that one hallway part that's like towards the end, you're like in the middle of the room and you turn to the wall and it turns into the gear room or whatever.
Yeah.
When I'm like walking up and down this hall, I'm like, what? Like, it's taking forever.
yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. She has no sense of urgency now. Like, cause like if it was a Resident Evil game, you'd be running around. Like, it's insane how she's just kind of chill with everything that's going on while she's getting attacked by like a knight or chased down by a boulder. Well, actually, all right. So that's the one part she ran, but then after that, she's back to just chilling. She like, I don't know how you could just go from running for your life like that to just vibing again and solving puzzles like Scooby Doo.
I honestly thought I was missing a button and I thought there was a sprint button, so I kept holding something and trying to like run forward. But I agree with you, Kyle. I think if they at least gave you free roam, you got to choose where you walk and all that, I think we could have beaten this game in about a half hour easily.
I mean, there's just not that much content in this game. Like, there's just not a lot at all.
I feel like the walking and the movement of the animations is just built-in padding, and you don't notice that it's padding, but they're literally slowing the game down on you, so you can't do anything.
Because it's like, when you really think about it, it's like, okay, starting from the castle, you walk to the drawer, you do the fucking like memory thing or whatever, then you do the note in the bowl of water. When you're in that room, you also find the key. So you use the key on that door, go in the room, and then there's that fucking puzzle. Wander around a little bit, find things. Like, you could talk through this game in like 5 minutes or less about like with every single step you need to take to beat the game. There's really not much going on there at all.
That's the best way to put it.
And they don't really sprinkle any story throughout the game. It's like you don't know what's going on until the very end. So it's like, you're like, okay, you're given what's going on in the beginning. You know, dad's gone a little crazy. Now you're in a castle and walking simulator happens. And then your dad's turning into Dracula.
She doesn't say anything. And the silent protagonist also doesn't work because, like, I don't know if I said this, but it's not scary if you're not like scared. Like, if you want me to have like an emotional reaction, have the character I'm playing have some sort of emotional reaction, you know, to motivate me.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, she didn't give a fuck about anything that was happening. She's like, I'm your dad. It's like, okay, you need to get the fuck out. She didn't say okay. She even just like looking like playing like T-posing, like looking into the void.
And that's the big thing too, is I think going off of what you're saying, Jay, is that the speed of her movement also is just telling of how the gameplay is going to be through the whole thing, and that there's not going to be anything scary. And I alluded to this earlier, that because you move like a turtle, nothing can chase you unless it's a quick time event. So you're not actually running away from anything. You're not going to get into fights because you can't move. So it's like, I thought it was just going to be like a jump scare type game where you're just constantly getting hit with jump scares. And when nothing really happened, I'm like, all right, well, I have nothing to be afraid of this entire time.
And that's the thing too, man, is it's like, with as slow as you walk around and all that, I was anticipating that in the beginning of the game. I was like, oh, something's going to happen around this corner, and nothing ever happens. I mean, they even missed an opportunity for the quick time event with the fucking boulder and running down the stairs. Like, they could have done something there, but it's just a cutscene. And then they're like, okay, disc 2.
I did actually enjoy one of the jump scares, which was the first one where she like opens the door and there's already like a skeleton there. But I don't know. It didn't get me. I liked the novelty of it. But then it just repeated that one over and over. It was just like, how many times did they use spikes? Like, come on. How many, like, let's get some original ideas in here. You're just recycling assets. There's like 3 spike-related jump scares. The game's it's fucking 2 hours long.
Well, the problem is that this game has no fail state. Like, you can't lose until you run out of time. So that's why it can't be scary. Like, if nothing bad is ever going to happen to you, like, there was the time in the beginning, that room with the spike wall and the big like barrel.
Dude, yeah, I was going to bring that up. I thought like when I walked forward again, I was going to like trigger the wall and I was going to die. No, she's just like, shouldn't do that.
I don't like this.
Yeah, her reactions to stuff and all her animations are so goofy. When she was interacting, anytime she interacted with a keyhole, she would like fucking caress
it.
With
the sword, the sword one where she like puts her finger in it. She's just like,
dude, it's so bad.
I was like, ooh.
Oh my God, she was getting up in that keyhole, brother. But okay, but that's the thing is she would also react by just shrugging. So I don't know. I forgot what I was saying. Sorry. But yeah, that was ridiculous. She had terrible animations. So it didn't add to the game at all. Again, I appreciate the novelty of her terrible animations. Like the T-posing shit like that. Same thing, like I said in Parappa the Rappa. But it's terrible.
I also thought it was weird that there's no walking sound effects unless you're on stairs.
It was a little unnerving too. Like you only hear it on the steps and then that's it. It's like, but I also think it would be very annoying if you're constantly here. Like we said, this is a walking simulator. So to hear those footsteps nonstop all the time would just be annoying.
Well, yeah, because when she's walking up the stairs, it sounds like she has fucking clogs on, dude. It's like, claw, claw, claw.
I think it's a good way that they could add tension of if they only had your footsteps, and maybe that you hear other footsteps at one point, and it's like, oh, someone's here with me, but they don't.
Well, dude, when you're in the garden area with the astrology puzzle, you hear like dog noises or something, or wolves.
The wolves, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, there's going to be something else like in this game besides just that knight that maybe I have to fight. Like maybe when I solve this puzzle, a wolf's going to come up on me or something, but no, nothing.
I thought the same exact thing. Which, for the astrology puzzle, did you guys have to look up what the symbols meant?
Yeah. I can't believe they
Yes.
want you, they like assume you're gonna know that. Who the I don't know. I'm not into astrology. Not many people I know are into astrology. I don't think it's a common thing to just know the symbols, right?
Yeah, I knew the Aquarius one for some reason off the top of my head, but I'm like, what the hell is Sagittarius? I don't know what that is. But they do kind of give you a hint with the statues.
What's funny is I kind of knew them from the Binding of Isaac because that's like what there's items based on all of them. So that's the only reason I knew.
Oh, there you go.
But I still had to look it up to like double check because I'm like, hold on a second.
Well, that's the same thing with the letter in the water for the 42. I was like, am I going crazy? I know this is a 4 in Roman numerals, but I had to check it. What is a 4 in Roman numerals? Because I'm like, am I just stupid right now and I'm getting it wrong?
Yeah. And I'll say this just because none of you guys got to the end of the game. Whenever you beat it and the credits roll, it just goes to black.
Really?
And you can't get out of it at all. You have to reset the game and put in disc 1 to start again. I left it there for like a good 30 seconds. It just goes to black, no sound, nothing.
How about that credit song though?
Credit song does slap. I will say that.
Dude, so good. And it's just the pictures of all these guys like working on the game, looking all like super into it and stuff.
The credit song is like an anime rock song.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
I need to check this out after this episode.
it's so silly.
Does not match the tone of the game at all. Very, very out of place.
By the way, Kyle, if you get the bad ending, I guess during the whole credits, they just play crunching noises because your father's eating you.
That's a nice touch, I think. That's for an otherwise bad game. That's a nice touch.
So yeah, just at the end of the game, you can shoot your dad or you can walk up to him and let him eat you.
Oh, okay.
Which like obviously a no-brainer, like unless people didn't think to use the gun.
Are you timed on that?
No, it's just if you advance to walk towards him at all, then he eats you. You have to like, as soon as the cutscene's over, you have to pull out the gun and shoot him. If you move at all, then you commit to being eaten.
Oh, that makes sense.
One thing that I did find interesting, and I don't know what the fuck this means, is so the Beatles that give you the flashbacks are optional.
Okay.
I actually didn't get the one where she eats her mom. I don't know why. I think they appear at random.
Interesting.
Isn't that the last one you get? Because like you get that in the hallway and you have to like walk to the end of the wall and like touch it or something like that.
I think I didn't get it because I didn't interact with it. I just walked up to it.
Oh.
That's the other frustrating part with this game is that you think you're as far into it as you can. And it's like, oh no, you got to push up one more time to then go even farther into, like, I didn't know that I could do that.
What I was going to say was if you get all the Beatles, after the credits, apparently there's like a baby crying sound.
Oh.
I don't know what that means in the context of this whole story. Like Dracula, I guess maybe she's pregnant with Dracula.
Do you only
Maybe.
get that if you get all the Beatles and the good ending?
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense then. That might be what that means, that she's pregnant with the baby of Dracula or whatever. Dude, this game fucking sucks.
And also going off of the thing of like the black screen after the credits, the same thing happens whenever you time out as well. I was sitting on a black screen for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, expecting something to happen. And it's like, oh, no, I got to put disc 1 back in. And that's what they're waiting for.
Why didn't they just put on the screen, please enter disc 1? It's not that hard.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this whole game. The only other thing we really didn't mention was I feel like this game is way too dark.
Yeah, dude, it's so dark.
I felt like I was like squinting at the screen to like see things.
And what aspect?
Just from the beginning of the game, I just felt like I had to adjust to how dark it is.
Oh.
Once I got to disc 2, I will say I didn't notice that as much. Because, I mean, the first room you get into is pretty bright. And maybe I was just used to the game at that point. But, like, the first area especially, like, I definitely felt like I was squinting. I was like, what is going on? Especially, like, when you're getting, like, the rotating room, for example, with, like, all those bricks and stuff. Like, there's just a lot of, like, it's overall really dark.
When you first said dark, I thought you were talking about like the context of the game, like the story and stuff.
Dude, it's so dark.
Honestly, like, so again, I'll just be devil's advocate real quick. If you played this game in the dark, the dim lighting I think would add to it, and you'd be able to see everything pretty fine. But yeah, it is still like really dimly lit, and that does also kind of help it look good because you can't see it as well. So because it is a pretty shitty looking game. So I know it's PS1, but we're watching a movie, so I feel like it should be a lot better.
That's the thing too, is it's like these are like pre-rendered movies. Like they couldn't make it look better. Like how were they held down by the limitations of this when it's just fucking like the limitations of like whatever the PS1 graphics or the 3DO graphics were, when it's like they're movies.
Yeah, it's just an MP4, brother. Like
There's like no environments or anything. Cause like one thing I noticed, like when you first drop into the game, like into like the fucking medieval house or whatever, it's just so still. And I was like, for a second, I was like, is my game frozen or something? And then I move forward and I'm like, oh.
So I have two things on this. One, it's important to remember with all these old games that they're made to be played on like an old TV, like a CRT. So like it probably does look better on that. Because like even pixel art, it's made to be played on that. So like whenever we play a pixel art game now, it's super sharp. But back then, the CRT would make it like blur a little bit and give it like more of an artsy style. So I don't know if that would help with this game. But also, these videos had to be so compressed to fit on these discs. Like all the old FMV games look like shit like this. It's all like grainy and like low detail. I think it's just because they had to compress the fuck out of it to get it on there.
But then why make it 3 discs? Like it makes me wonder what is taking up so many resources.
I think there's just so many videos that they can't fit it.
Yeah, movies do take up like a lot of space, and you have to have a movie for every single possibility of movement. So that adds up really quick, versus like putting down like a small environment and then like you can move 360 degrees and completely free. That would take up actually like less resources potentially, but that's why it's surprising that they went for it. I just really don't understand why this was the execution for the game when at the time was Resident Evil already out at the time when this came out. Like why wasn't it more like that?
No, Resident Evil was 96, and this would have came out like a year before.
Still, the technology, it had to have been close, right? Maybe not.
I mean, I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right. Well, so I feel like the execution was insanely poor. And with an idea like this, you could have gone a lot further. I'm curious to actually hear about what the Dreamcast version is like, or look that up.
Yeah, I mean, you figure a CD is what, like 700 megabytes, I think, that you can hold on it? Something like that. But yeah, I mean, regardless, like, the game doesn't look good. And like, there is a PC version that you can actually get on Steam that runs with DOSBox, like the emulator, and that is full screen. It's not like 4:3, so that one does look a little bit better. I watched some videos of it, but it doesn't matter. It still looks bad,
Yeah, that's crazy that it actually came out on PC, and it's honestly, I feel like it's even crazier it's out on Steam. This is one of those games that should be lost to time. There's like Tony Hawk's Underground 2 for PC isn't on Steam, but that is really strange to me.
Well, Tony Hawk isn't on Steam because of licensing with the music.
No rebuttal. They could use the music from this game then. The fucking Legend of Zelda soundtrack that they made.
I will say, I do think if this game had like a banging soundtrack, like while you're playing, like if it had some like Silent Hill, Resident Evil type shit, that would bring it up for me a little bit. But just nothing, the whole game, just that one drone sound.
Not until you actually like go to a new area and then you get that Phantasmagoria soundtrack, like the keys over some pads. That's the only time.
Yeah, and that's goofy. Like it doesn't make me scared. There was a couple times that there was like piano playing, no like shrieking violins, no like yelling from her. I don't know. I was laughing whenever something happened because it was just kind of dead silent. And then the animation is so goofy that, it adds to it. The audio is something that, for a horror game, it's like almost as important as the gameplay, if not as important. You know what I mean? It's not like a background to the gameplay.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, well, I'll read these reviews and then we can shit on this game with our scores. So
let's go.
It got really good reviews at the time. So that's crazy.
Huh.
It got even better reviews on the 3DO for the original review.
Wow.
Like the original release, I mean. It's I think it got like 8s and 9s because it was like, wow, this is crazy. No one's ever done this before. But I didn't pull any of these because that's not really what we do. But like there's reviews from later where people went back and they're all just horrible. They're like 4s and 5s. But at the time for the PS1, IGN gave it a 7 out of 10, which is crazy.
Insanity.
And here's like the thing at the end of the review, because the reviews from back then are really short. Unfortunately, D is too short. It is easily finished in just a couple of days. It also runs very slowly. The loading time between scenes is incredibly long, as are most console graphic adventures. Alone in the Dark, for example. These are mere quibbles, though. If you liked Resident Evil, you'll probably enjoy D as well.
Shut the fuck up.
That's
What?
insane. That is a terrible comparison.
Every single thing in here is just bullshit.
If you told someone that's like, hey, I know you like Resident Evil, you would really like this game, you should rent it from Blockbuster on a Friday night. Imagine if you went to like Blockbuster Family Video and this was the fucking game you picked and you went home and played this.
That person would not be my friend anymore.
I was just about to make the same joke. So one big thing about this that is odd to me is that he says you can easily finish it in just a couple of days. So is he saying that he's starting over multiple days to play it?
He has to mean that, right? I mean, he like plays till he has to stop and then starts again.
That's awful.
The fact that you're locked in for 2 hours, you don't have a choice. If you start playing this game, you have to play it through until the end. And it's a bold move.
So, Mike, I found a new magazine for you to look up the logo for.
Thank you.
German magazine Next Game gave it a 7.3 out of 10. And they said, anyone who finds graphic adventures boring and stupid will not be able to do anything with Laura's adventures. If you like the more leisurely pace of the genre, you might want to take a look.
I feel like that's a more honest one.
Leisurely pace is a very, very nice way to put it.
If you like playing as a snail, you'll enjoy this.
Snail Simulator.
All right, so that's going to bring us to our scores. I can go first, I guess. I mean, this was a tough one for me because, like, it's low, obviously, like really low. But at the same time, there are some things that, like, it's so stupid that I kind of like it for that. But I just can't excuse the rotating room. I can't excuse so much of it, dude. I can't.
Unforgivable.
No amount of silliness will save it. So for that, I'm going to go with the lowest score I've given so far with a 3.
Wow. Well, I mean, everything you're saying is justified. And I was pretty much sitting between a 3 and a 4, depending on where this conversation was going to go. I'm going to agree with you. This is the lowest. It's 3.
I mean, I'm sure you guys know that my score is going to be low. I'm going to give this game a fucking 2. And I thought long and hard on this one. Okay. This wasn't just like a, oh, this game sucks. I'm going to give it a 10. No, dude. Like, the only redeeming things, and I wouldn't even call them redeeming, is like, okay, this is a game and you can beat it.
It is certainly a game.
I don't know why you would want to. Like, literally the best part about this game is the credits song. And I'm not just saying that to be a dick. Like, this game is atrocious and I will never come back to it. Like, I'm not even joking when there were multiple times while I was playing this game that the thought had crossed my mind where I'm like, I could just tell Jim I'm going to sit this episode out. Like,
I always told him the same thing.
When I was playing this, I was streaming it on Discord to my buddy Gage, and he was watching me play it. And the whole time we were just groaning. And I like wanted to give up. He's like, no, dude, you got to see this through. And I'm very disappointed that I did. 2 out of 10. Fuck this game.
All right, Jay.
I'll give this game the better of the scores. I'll give it, I don't know if I can give this a 3-5. I want to because it's novel, but Parappa's a 4-5 for me. This is a 3. This is definitely a 3. But also, I enjoyed the absurdity for it just for doing this show and knowing that we would be talking about it, making fun of it. Honestly, if I went to Blockbuster, like you guys were saying, hypothetically, and rented this and took it home on a Saturday night and was stoked to play it, I'd be really fucking disappointed.
Yeah, because you wouldn't have beat it. Like, you got to think, man, this is like the 90s. You can't just fucking like hop on Google and look up a walkthrough. Like, you got to figure it the fuck out. Other than like them showing things in the beginning of the game, like the little cutscene or whatever, like there's no clues. Other than, I think, isn't that mirror a one-time use item?
No, it's 3, I think, and I used it all in a row because I was like, "Oh, I got a break from this." Spam it. So just spam it till it fucking breaks. That's like, oh my god. And then I had to restart twice anyway, so thankfully I had it through the other runs. But yeah, this game is very poor at explaining things. But one thing I wanted to say is, I feel like all the PS1 games at the time were this way. You know what I mean? So that's a factor that's going to be applicable to all of them. Like Tomb Raider, that game explains nothing. You know what I mean? You're getting attacked left and right randomly with like no warning. You know what I mean? This game is sort of the same way in that like there's no explanation.
But I want to push back on that though, dude, because like honestly, at this point, me and Mike have played 45 PS1 games. This is the lowest one for a reason, because even if it doesn't explain anything, you can still figure things out in other games. Like, I would say a good half of this list is games where they don't even have a tutorial, they don't have anything, but you can easily figure it out on your own just in the first 5 seconds of playing it because it's obvious. This game doesn't even give you shit. Nothing at all, period. So that's why it's literally number 45 on this list.
It's the lowest game.
Yep.
Damn.
What's the final score? 2.5?
2.75. And to go off your point real quick, Kyle, about like playing this as a kid, imagine playing this and you're stuck on a puzzle and you're like, oh, I'm going to get this. And then time runs out on you. And now you got to start over and learn from your previous mistakes and then just keep pushing forward. Essentially, you could be playing this game for weeks on end trying to get to the ending because you just can't figure out some of the puzzles, which makes the whole like making a kid commit to this for 2 hours is insanity.
Yeah, you have to spend 40 minutes just to get back to the part that you were stuck on to only still be stuck on it. And you're going to do that like 4 or 5 times until you got to return the game.
I remember when I was watching my cousin play this, I do remember him calling my uncle and having him explain some point of the game to him. And it's just like, damn. Imagine having to phone a friend on this shit.
All right, that is going to do it for us. Thank you guys for joining us. And thank you so much for watching or listening to this. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.
Bye.